And unfortunately, it's actually well past showtime. But I'm Jay Cleveland Payne. I'm still here. We're doing some changes. So if you've seen us before, you'll see me doing a little clicking here or there to get things kind of in frame. This is welcome. This is welcome. Welcome to Things You Might Have Heard per the script that's over here now, where we will bring you yesterday's latest information, politics, current events, and pop culture. We're your go to source for unconventional stories that mainstream media might overlook. Some may spend a little extra too much time with, but we'll put those out there as well. So please stand by as we, your news side piece, will take good care of your news needs that the national news anchors may not have done such a great job overnight. As the teaser graphic shows, we're going to talk about Louisa May Alcott. We're going to get to her, air quotes, in a bit, but we also have 7 other stories from the past day that you vetted as conversational, and then I basically crafted into the narrative we have for here. We'll explain how to participate in the vetting process at the end of the headline session. So give us about 10 to 12 minutes and you'll get a chance to see how that part works. For more information about what we do full time for the Conversation Project, visit our website, theconversationproject.com. That saves us so we only have to talk for about a minute as opposed to a much longer time. So 8 stories to get to. Let's go ahead and start with the first story for the morning. And that is this one right here. Pope Francis says former Pope Benedict is very sick and asked for prayers for him. Pope Francis said this yesterday. His predecessor, Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, I'm not even going to that one, is very sick, and that we would like faithful folks to pray for him. Vatican spokesperson said he's basically the Pope Benedict is in his home, which is a smaller monastery, and he's essentially at the mortal coils, the last parts of his death, with a hospital, with doctors, things with him working through this. He, of course, the German Pope, the Pope Benedict, was one of the few popes to actually sort of retire while living. It had been done in like 100 years, and the odd thing about this whole process is we don't have a process for sending off a retired pope. If the pope dies, you did have all these things going on. If the pope retires, that really doesn't happen very often. Let's move to the second story of the morning. This one right here. Buffalo woman checks into attic in blizzard to find inches of snow. So we saw plenty of these snow pictures out of Buffalo, New York, and northern New York, where it's insane what's going on there. And essentially every weekend you get like 28 inches of snow. A woman on TikTok, you can follow her by looking for Butterfly5384, shared some things that she had going on in her house. She opened up her attic and looked to check to see, as she's seen some wet spots in her ceiling. To find inches of snow had found its way inside of her house and, was sitting there waiting to essentially melt to make things worse. Now, pictures I saw this morning show some of the devastation as you go further north. There are some beach houses in Canada that are essentially iced over. It looks like, the day after tomorrow, literally, where just ice is covering all these houses on the beach because waters come up, ice come down, rain and snow, and it is what it is. The snow effect, this winter stuff has been a serious issue for us this season. As promised, Little Women author may have been transgender or non-binary, New York Times article claims. All right, this is where people are going to want to fight. An article in the New York Times says that maybe Louisa May Alcott, maybe, rumors were that she were like a lesbian, that she was attracted to women. Maybe she didn't actually identify as a woman and was basically binary sex gender model of the age, back in 1868. She wrote her first novel under the pen name A.M. Bernard, of course, and then, of course, found that she got better acclaim much further with the first part of Little Women, which was basically a serialized type of book in the day. But the president of the Louisa May Alcott Society says that the author may have been essentially a transgender woman way back. Now, many people are sort of shooting back at the article and saying that, okay, maybe she was a lesbian, but she didn't necessarily refer to herself as a man, even though she, said she had the spirit of a man. It was one of those things that just, we don't really know because we weren't living that time of the year. But this is something for debate. People were debating this for many years based on things she said, things she's wrote, things she's put out there. We'll see how this works out in the future. Let's move on to this one, which is a little bit embarrassing. but there's money to be made. Drake's teenage lyrics found abandoned in uncle's factory dumpster. Drake's early lyrics were found in the trash while working in his uncle's Memphis furniture factory. Why they found them, all this time later. And I thought that Drake was Canadian, whatever. They are now up for sale on auction, 20,000 K. Drake alleged bars read like poems, and he apparently penned a song called Come Spring, which eventually evolved into Come Winter, which actually was produced from his pre-fame debut mixtape, Room for Improvement. Debut. So if you want to buy up early Drake, you can get a chance to get some Drake before he was probably still Aubrey, believe it or not. Let's move on to the next story. This one right here. U.S. to require COVID tests for travelers coming from China. The Biden administration has announced new testing requirements yesterday, for travelers coming to the U.S. from China. The requirement applies to everyone under the age of older than 2 years old, regardless of nationality or vaccination status. It applies to everyone connecting through other countries. And part of this thing is the fact that China is actually coming into the rest of the world by relaxing its COVID policies and, of course, relaxing its numbers being pushed out. But the problem is we can't necessarily trust the numbers that China is putting out because they may be relaxing those things. It just seems like there's that many more COVID deaths. In fact, we had a story that didn't make it into the range yesterday or the day before about the number of funerals, coffins. Funeral homes in China are doing the business when the numbers are apparently coming down, which is something that's a bit suspect. So we'll see how that one works out. More than 2,000 millionaires fled New York during COVID pandemic. Following up on that, the number officially, more or less, 2,393. Those are people who are worth $1 million, real millionaires, and 10% of the number who were relocated the year prior for the start in 2019. So apparently a lot more millionaires are leaving New York than we thought. It just seemed to be a big old deal when COVID happened and they needed some freedom. This New York share of millionaires and tax filers fell from 8.9% in 2020, from 9.9% to 2019, from 12.7% in 2010. There are less millionaires in New York City. That's the interesting part. The more interesting part about it is where they went to. Florida has been one of the biggest beneficiaries of Escape New York saga, with 53,190 millionaires tax filers in 2020, affecting a gain of 170% over previous 10 years. The biggest loss in the loss of millionaires is not the people themselves, but tax revenue, which is basically where things are going. Why Florida is much more mightier now than it was. A lot of New Yorkers, a lot of money left for Florida. Ryan Seacrest says CNN axing alcohol during New Year's Eve broadcast is a good idea. Ryan Seacrest sort of throwing a little shade back as the new head of CNN decided that there'll be less on-air drinking and off-air drinking during their hours worth of New Year's coverage starring Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper. Seacrest said that him and his staff don't get drunk until 1:05 a.m. That's an hour after midnight when all the stuff is done. And then they have their own party. While speculating that CNN decision to limit alcohol consumption was among his anchors having something to do with the incident happening last year's programming, Andy Cohen took a shot at Ryan Seacrest, or at the broadcast, pointing over his shoulder and saying, those losers of ABC doing their broadcasts over there, saying that maybe that had something to do with the fact that they were told to hold back a little bit. So Andy Cohen has shot back saying while he regrets nothing, well, he does regret some things on that day. He does not regret that particular statement. He's not quite ready to give up on the booze just yet for New Year's Eve. We shall all see. And Tulsi Gabbard tears into George Santos in a Fox interview. Do you have no shame? During an interview with Santos, Tulsi Gabbard, who was hosting on the night, asked Santos if the Democrats had no shame, for supporting Biden, who had been lying to the American people for 40 years. Of course, Santos said yes. So she asked him, they had no shame for lying to the people he was running against and getting the votes. Santos admitted he embellished his resume and by representing himself as an American Jew and saying that his maternal grandparents fled Europe during World War II, and reports have emerged that his grandparents were born in Brazil, before the war started, so they didn't even have to get out of there. He says he's not a facade. Of course, he's not a criminal, but he lied to the American people, lied to the folks in his district, and he's about to get seated in Congress next week. There's really nothing they can do to stop him. We shall see how the ballot of George Santos continues. Although the big question will be 2 years from now, will the people who voted for him vote for him again because he does miraculous things since he's there? They just forgive him, or they realize they got duped, they need to move away from what's going on. So let's go over to the tease, if you will, talk about stories for tomorrow that may be a part of the set. This is a story that if you want it in, you just basically tell me what you want in there. You tell me that this is good by your engagement with the story. We'll explain that in just a minute. But here is the headline that may be in the top 8, top 15, and the 8 we talk about for Friday. Bill Cosby plans 2023 comedy tour after overturned sexual assault conviction. There's your headline. There's your intuition. Think about it as you will, and let me know if we're talking about this one by going to the feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/This Is Conversation Project and Twitter.com/TH_conversation. Pause for effect. Bill Cosby going back on tour. Let that sink in a bit. And when that posts in about an hour, I need you to kind of ignore that part. I need you to go ahead and engage with it as if you want to chat it up. And we'll do that. Like it, love it, hate it, share it. The more engagement you give to the story, the more chance we have a chance to talk about it tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry, folks. I'm all over the place today. So after that poor performance, I still have to talk to you guys about money, giving me money, which is a really kind of catty thing to do, but we'll do it very fast as we talk about Flowers Fast. Flowers Fast is a source that will save you time and money and maybe your life. Flowers Fast will provide for you flowers fast, and they have a contact with all the FTD florists across the nation. You put in your order at Flowers Fast, and you could get it same day if you get in fast enough. Check them out at this. It's a conversationproject.com/flowersfast. This is a conversationproject.com/flowersfast. Flowers are not just a gift to think about for birthdays and anniversaries and Christmas time and holidays. If you ever just need to give flowers, you just want to send something to someone, think about Flowers Fast and think about us. Use our affiliate link so that we get a little bit coming back towards us to keep this thing going. Even though today may not be one of those stellar days, we'll explain some of the issues we're having in just a bit. Let's go ahead and explain it now since we're at this ladder right here. This is the conversationproject.com. It's the home for the Conversation Project. What happens at the Conversation Project? A whole lot of stuff. The point behind the Conversation Project is to provide for you videos and audios and written stuff that are conversational. Those are air quotes if you're listening to this. Things that people from around the world are really interested in and can want to talk about, and have forums for that. This thing right here gives you a couple things you can start your day off with and take along with you for your chat. We started off thinking as, water cooler chat. As you get to work and talk to folks. These are some stories that are pretty important that people thought were pretty interesting. It allows you to have a couple things to say in those coffee chats. We are proud to do this. We're happy to do this. We have more things planned. The back and forth, eyeball. We're trying to work on a better way to read the scripts and read what things are going on so we can get more things, get an actual script going through. Not enough screens, not enough space, not enough equipment. That requires resources, and the resources we need from you. So we got to up our game so you're willing to up your resources. That's what we're doing. We thank everybody for supporting us. All they did in the last 24 hours, the last 12 months, last bunch of time, but we're looking for going forward for the next year. So if you see something that you think is redeemable, check out us out at the Conversation Project. Stop by our partnerships or our sponsors page. Stop by some of the other details, things we do, and see what we can do for you. Day has been sort of a very scattered day. So let's go ahead and go to the wrap-up stages. The today things for the day, including birthdays. Now, we had to cut out a couple great birthdays. We cut out Mekhi Phifer, which we never do, to put in Diego Luna, 43 years old, from the star of Andor, and of course, the Star Wars. Now I lost that. The Star Wars prequel that everybody loved that I can't think of right now because way too many things going on. Not exactly the best show, but we're under 15 minutes, so that's kind of good. Ted Danson did not get skipped, 75 years old on the day, and John Voight, although we try to think about skipping him every year, we don't. John Voight turning 84 years old. We give him his props just for being John Voight. although some of that comes with the baggage that it comes with. TikTok Day is your day to celebrate for today. TikTok Day is not the day to celebrate the TikTok app. So, no. TikTok Day is a day where you take your list of things that need to do and you tick them off your list and you get them done with relatively clean time. TikTok, like a clock, not TikTok like doing a dance on the video. It is TikTok Day, not TikTok Day, if that makes any sense. All right, finally, one last thing you might not have heard for this morning. Many artists are releasing shorter songs as the incentives in the music industry change in favor streaming and short video apps. The percentage of top 10 hits that are less than 3 minutes long is up to 38% this year, up from just 4% in 2016. Contrast those numbers. Artists want to minimize the skip rate as much as possible on streaming platforms because platforms with lower skip rates get pricey on them. And they also get paid by the song, not the second. So as a result, the incentives are not to shy away from shorter songs. If you have shorter songs, you can get more in there. Going back to a joke I talk about back in my college radio days, basically everybody who signed for radio and did their first month of just training and did their stuff could take a specialty hour and do whatever they want to, especially music. I did jazz music and I did a Sunday study break for a long time because I could just put on music and kind of sit back and chill. We had guys that did hard rock. We had a guy that did a reggae show. We had a guy that did the rap show. And I trained with the guy who did the Motown show every week, which ironically enough, my niece sort of gravitated to when she started doing radio at the college radio station because it was an idea. It was like, hey, I can do that. So she does the Motown show there now. One show that was extremely popular, mostly because we kind of teased him a bit, was a show by DJ Kevin Berry, who lives from California, who somehow ended up in Louisiana and was always talking about his love of ska music. And so he got a chance to talk to the record labels, get all the ska music he could get and play it like crazy. And so when we looked at everybody's logs for music over their 2-hour shift, well, everybody else had like maybe 50 to 60 songs. He had 100 to 120 songs every week because all his songs were like 2 minutes long. And then you play them and you talk for 10 seconds. And he played them, talk for 10 seconds because they're so short. Ska is emotion, ska is a movement, ska is a way of life, I guess. And that's kind of sort of what you get there. When you get shorter songs, you can play a whole lot more of them in a whole lot less time. And I guess for streaming services, since it's by song, you get paid a lot more money. This has been a very disastrous version of things you might have heard, but at least the slides were in place today. Thursday, December 29th, 2022. We are 2 days away from a New Year's Day, a day or so away from New Year's Eve. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself and your time. If it's away and off, yes. If you're not away and off, it's probably slower to enjoy some of that. Hope if you have plans for the New Year's, we are not going to do anything broadcasting here. So don't be looking for me to pop bottles with, because that ain't happening. I'm going to bed at 9:30 because that's what I do. But for yourself, you and yours, thank you so much for what's going on. As I've been saying very often, if you want to get my goal setting program, look on the web, search for the podcast for 10-minute life lesson podcast. You will get my goal setting thing. It should be out now, essentially. And you'll get a chance to get my goal setting program. There's a PDF to go along with it so you can follow along. And you don't have to do a big detailed resolution type thing. There's a little work. You have to check your time, but check that out. So apologies for being a little bit tired. It's been a kind of a long week, if you call it a slow week. I'll just be a little bit dragging. We're adding a bunch of things to the system in process and trying to make it work. And apologies for the split screen because we thought we could get a split screen going. That's not going to happen very well. What we need is a producer. I need a producer. I need a writer. So if you know someone who's willing to get up early and work on a project like this, that's a partnership that I can definitely get a hold of. Reach out and let me know. In the meantime, let's get ready for Thursday. 2 days till the new year. We're in it. Let's do this.